Here we go. Okay. Error occurred. Wait a minute. Okay. So, hey, it's Kat Ramirez, and we are live. And in case you've never tuned in, I am Kat Ramirez, CEO and founder of Advertise. We help businesses stand out and grow. Today, I have a very special guest. If you've seen any or my notes for this broadcast, I have Megan McCray, CEO of SideKick Accounting. And I'm excited to have Megan. Thank you, Megan.
Hi, happy to be here. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And so I thought it was a great idea to have Megan on because of the financial crisis that a lot of people, and when I say people, businesses, entrepreneurs, so whether they're solopreneurs, small business owners, or basically anybody with 100, you tell me the size that you deal with of business.
For me, so we deal with clients usually from startup phase to probably within like a few $1 million, depending on the business. Employee size, we're usually somewhere within the range of like owner to probably like 20 employees, though we do have some like home healthcare businesses that have, like 50 to 100 employees as well.
Okay.
So smaller size businesses, but businesses with employees and non-employees. So a little bit of a range there. We do primarily the bookkeeping for clients that have at least one employee usually.
Okay. So whether they're a small business owner or you might have to put headphones in because I can hear me talking on your computer.
Oh, no. Okay.
So whether they are a small business owner, solopreneur, or they have a team, you're there to help them. So I know you do a lot of live yourself, and I've been watching them, and you've been giving a lot of people tips. What are the common questions that you're hearing over and over, Megan? Because I use you, and I think you're a great resource, and I think more people need to probably follow you and watch you, because as this thing keeps evolving and growing, it's great to have a resource. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can she hear me? I can.
Okay, I can hear you. Sorry.
Did you hear me though? Did you hear me at all?
I heard the part about some questions that I'm coming across. I've been doing some live videos, and then I kind of lost you.
Oh, okay.
I probably the question.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So in case anybody's catching Megan now, she had to switch from her computer audio to her headphones because I could hear myself on her computer, and it was distorted. No, everybody would be going insane. Just so you know. So Megan, you have been a huge resource for a lot of businesses because you do a lot of lives and you're answering a lot of questions. What are some of the common questions that you're getting right now from people?
Well, one big question has been surrounding like the PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program that SBA put out. Last week it was announced that funding for that had ran out, so I think everybody was kind of in a scramble as a result of that. And then Wisconsin was announced that we are safe at home was going to be extended another month. So I think one of the main questions is like, what do I do when I don't have funds, or I'm having cash flow problems, or I'm completely shut down? How do I go about applying for this program? Can I apply for it even though I don't have employees? Has been one of the bigger questions that we've gotten as well. And the answer to that is yes. If you are a solopreneur, or if you've just been running your business by yourself, you can apply for the PPP. They're looking at your 2019 taxes to kind of figure out what your monthly amount is, because with the PPP, it's 2.5 times whatever your monthly payroll expenses are, and that's the amount of the convertible grant. And I call it a convertible grant because if you use it appropriately, you can have it be forgiven. So which is good news for employers,
Right.
or business owners, not just necessarily employers, because if you have no employees, you can still apply for it. But they're going to be going off of your 2019 taxes. So if you're interested in applying for that, that's something you're going to first want to get done, is make sure that your 2019 taxes are done. Or if you started operating in 2020, you want to make sure that your profit and loss or your financials are up to date for January and February of 2020, because that's going to be like the test period.
Okay, because I know I had applied, and I actually applied to two banks, my two primary banks. I have two primary banks, and one of them got back to me, and I was through the process. I mean, because it only launched on last Monday, and then it like was gone by Wednesday.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, for solopreneurs, yeah, they had just launched it, and yeah, by like Wednesday, I think they announced that the funding was gone.
yeah. And so so I know that both my banks have contacted me and said to have me fill out the rest of the paperwork, and they've said we're putting you in the queue for that when it launches again. You're up there, Kat. And so I know I have heard from my bank. If somebody out there has applied but haven't heard from their bank, what do you suggest, Megan?
I would suggest following up with your banker. If you were working with a specific banker, for sure, follow up with them. Otherwise, I know a lot of the banks are not taking calls right now, but they are letting you email them. So I would just be persistent about emailing, to get the updated information. I know too, one thing that's come up is like, I heard back from my bank and got approved, but I haven't heard anything since. So if you got approved, contact your banker, whoever told you got approved, and ask them for an ETRAN number. It's the ETRAN number. That's the number from the SBA that basically reserved your funds. So as long as you have that, that means that you're going to get funding for it. And they're supposed to fund the loan within 10 days. I'm thinking 10 business days from when you were told you were approved. So that might be a little bit of a gap there, but I would definitely follow up on that and make sure you get that ETRAN number from them if they didn't give it to you.
Okay. And then the other loan that is available, and I don't know the acronym for it. It's the
EIDL.
Yes. Okay. So thank you, because I love having an expert. I'm an expert. So I love having an expert. So that loan, okay, so I know I submitted for that too, and I haven't heard anything, because that is a different loan for like rent or utility bills or car payment and some stuff like that, right? Like that's totally different.
Yeah, it's just an actual loan. So you're going to have to pay it back. There was some I would say confusion around the advance, the $10,000 grant that was being pushed, I guess, from the SBA, that everybody who applied was automatically going to get $10,000. And I think it was last week, or maybe it was the week before that. Everything's kind of running together because everything changes at like every day. But either last week or the week before that, everybody got an email saying who had applied for it, and basically it was something along the lines of like, we wanted to make this money go farther, so we're only giving people $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. So everybody who had applied for it, who didn't have any employees or had put 0 on the application, didn't get any money. From what I've heard, a lot of the people that did have employees though did get the $1,000 per employee. A lot of people who I know had applied for it like right after that went live. So that was, I think around March 30th or 31st is when they were, they made that part of it live. They got funded already for that.
Okay.
For the grant part of it, but not the actual loan part. I did hear one of my clients got funded for the actual loan part, but I actually didn't talk to her about like what happened after that, and I haven't heard back from anybody else. So I think that is probably still in motion, but it's slow.
Right, because I applied for that, and so when I called the SBA, they told me to do that grant one first,
Yeah.
then that would facilitate me getting the loan. But
Right.
I have yet to hear from them, which I think is a little disappointing. And then when I reached out to them, because I reached out to them after I think maybe a week or two. I'm like you, my weeks are running into each other. After I reached out to them, what they told me, and they told me this, so I can say this publicly. They told me that the first question they asked was, did I apply before March 30th? And I said, I don't know. I don't remember. And I said, I think I applied twice. I think I might have once then and then once after that because I didn't hear it from anybody. And the lady that was on the phone with me said, well, our system crashed and anybody who applied before March 30th, those applications are gone. Yeah, so that's what she told me. And and then I was like, well, why don't you guys tell everybody? And probably they didn't want the floodgates again to crash the system again. So I'm saying this publicly. If you had applied for that loan, that grant, that it's not a grant, right? It's a loan.
It's a loan. Yeah.
Okay. So if you applied for that one and you applied before March 30th, I would highly suggest you reapply and screen capture that number they give you. Because that's what she told me. She goes, if you apply again, screen capture that number so that when you call back, you can track it. And if they can't find the number, that means that it was lost.
It was lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that was a little disappointing to me because, I mean, here's the thing. You're a small business. I'm a small business. At the end of the day, I'm really frustrated and kind of pissed off because we're really small and we need the money. And I feel like the bigger companies are gobbling up this money. And maybe even there's companies that don't need the money and are applying for it and taking this off the table. Because I'm just one tiny person amongst a bunch of people. And for it to just get gobbled up that fast, is kind of disappointing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a number of different things I think that happen there. One is that I know a lot of colleagues in the accounting arena were encouraging people to apply for it, even if you don't necessarily need it, because you don't know what your cash flow is going to look like. So it's kind of forward planning, but to your point, the businesses that need it now had less access to it. One other thing is like for solopreneurs and independent contractors and businesses with no employees, they weren't allowed to apply for it right away. So all the businesses that had employees were able to apply for that when it first opened up. So that, I think, when you go off a payroll cost, that can be a substantial amount of money. So some of the bigger businesses, like I know, I think Shake Shack was one of the ones that was just recently in the news this week because they actually gave the money they received from the government back because they were able to secure funding in a different area. So that was a really great move from them. I had also seen that Potbelly was one that had received funding from the government with the PPP, and they are over the limitations that they were supposed to be. So I don't really know the details with that, but there's some concerns, I guess, in that arena that people who didn't really need the funds are applying for these funds that are then being taken away from smaller businesses. So I'm hoping with this next set of funding that the SBA goes, that it's going to focus more on micro businesses. And two, I had just heard this past week that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has actually opened up funding for businesses that are smaller, I think between 3 and 20 employees, for an up to $5,000 grant.
Okay.
So that's an option too.
Oh, and I think that's awesome. And here's the other thing is and I had this conversation with an attorney when I had her on, is the dynamics keep changing. So it's a moving target. So, I think people that, my heart goes out to the people who need it. And it's the solopreneurs. It's the people that don't have the resources. It's people who can't get a loan, and these are businesses that have either just started up. I mean, I heard from one of my employees that her best friend started a business last year. She had to close it because she can't survive this.
Right.
And the rent alone after 2 months of being closed just gobbled up all her money. And she was like, I just can't afford it. I can't do it anymore.
Right.
So she, like last weekend, she had to go and clean out her, business and close it up, which is really, really sad. But that's why I'm saying, like, I feel like this money should have been for people like her who, like put her neck out and started a business like a year ago and probably doesn't have the history to say, hey, help me out, Whereas, go ahead.
Yeah, I know it's a PPP because it's the Paycheck Protection Program. So the main intent was for businesses that employ people because its focus was to keep those people employed and off of unemployment. So I know in that terms, that's specifically what the PPP was for. Yep. I haven't seen a whole lot of like specific programs going towards like the micro businesses, like you're talking about, specific to them. So that, and it is very frustrating. And I know many business owners that are kind of in the same boat, and they're like, I don't know what to do. Like it's difficult. But I would say, just like on a note of encouragement, like the biggest businesses are built out of times of adversity and struggle.
Yep.
So this is a great time to really just sit back and evaluate like your business model and what you're doing and adjust. I know pivot is like the
word.
Yeah. It's like the big word right now. But I had heard somebody else talk about it, and she was talking about how it's not pivoting, it's evolving. And I kind of like that better, because evolving means like you're getting better and you're improving and you're adjusting. And that's kind of what needs to happen right now with the small businesses that are struggling. You have to evolve. And, the statistic before all of this happened was that 8 out of 10 small businesses fail.
Yep.
So that's not like, failing businesses isn't something that, is uncommon. It unfortunately is something that happens. And so you have to really dig into like your grit, your model, your intention, and your passion, like right now, and really figure out like why you do what you do and how you do it and how to make money off of it. Because the truth is that even though there is a lot of things shut down, there's still a lot of money moving. Yep. There's still people that are buying. There's still people that are selling, so like, it like everything hasn't shut down. It's just certain things have, and you have to kind of figure out how to adjust to that. And sometimes that might be coming up with a totally different business idea. And there's nothing wrong with that, or breaking into a new market. It's just, I feel like small business evolution that happens anyways is like being pushed into like this 10-week or 12-week window. So now something that would take 2 years to get to is going to take 6 months.
Right.
So it's really being accelerated. So in some ways that can be an advantage, because if the statistic is 8 out of 10 businesses fail, if you're able to figure out the weak points in your business now under like scrutiny and pressure, you're actually going to be saving yourself money in the long run. If you can fix those problems now, so that when things open back up, you're able to hit the ground running.
Yeah. And I agree with you, because so I have seen a lot of things on social media. So first off, social media is like everybody's on it. Like it is, it's clam tight. Like if someone is not using the resources of social media to help their business grow right now, shame on them, because it is like clamoring. And the other thing was, if you do evolve or pivot, whatever you want to call it, and we get back to our new norm, that's just another revenue stream. That is a completely new revenue stream. So that actually helps the business. And if you look at any leader, anybody who has become very, very successful, they're about change, and they're about adapting to change. And they do what they can to solve the problem that's going on today. What does my business what can I do to solve the problem today to help somebody so I can stay in business, you know?
Right.
And then the other thing I saw that I love is there was a lady who, and she probably had money, okay, but she said, hey, I'm bored. I'm going to go shopping, you know, and I
Yeah.
want to buy from local businesses. And she was like, you know, if you have a local e-commerce, drop me your line, you know, your website, and I'll happily shop from you. And
Mhm.
I love that because I think what we're seeing from this is a lot of positive of people supporting local businesses because
I agree.
of the fact that, you know, they can't go shop them physically. So why go to a big chain when you can go to these small businesses and help them survive, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I think people are really out to help each other, even just being like the number of services people are giving at discount or for free
Yep.
in order to help, you know, other small businesses. I know I myself have bought from many small businesses, sometimes even just things I don't necessarily need, but
Right.
my income is still coming in. So
Right.
I'm trying to support, you know, other people as well, because I think that's the way we're really going to get through it, is by helping each other
Yep.
in this you know, climate and environment.
Yeah.
That's the way we're going to make it through.
So, okay. So you had another conversation. I'm going to bring this up because I thought you gave some really good tips. And you said, hey, if you're not going to get the funding, if you're still in business and you want to cut costs, you gave a bunch of suggestions of what you can do. And one of the ones where, and I'm going to stimulate your brain here. One of the ones was look at all your subscriptions, because you said people are subscribed to stuff, don't realize it unless they're looking at their day-to-day books of what are the subscriptions that you can cut or call them, right? Are you there? Can you hear me? So as Megan is getting back on, I will just keep talking because that way you can hear from me. If you guys have a question for Megan, drop a line because we can see the comments and we're happy to have Megan answer your questions. So any questions that you might have in regards to the PPP, the EDL, she can't hear me. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? To give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. And let me see if I can hear me, Megan. Yeah, I can hear me. I can't hear you, Megan. Maybe take it off and just try it without, see if I can still hear the reverb or whatever. But if anybody has any questions, please drop a line. Oh, somebody did ask a question. Please drop a line because she's here to help out and she's here to answer whatever questions that you guys might have. And I know Megan has extended herself and helped businesses apply for these loans. She's also helped people look at their finances. So she is a huge resource and someone that, you know, if you don't have an accountant, if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have someone to lean on, because this is about leaning on somebody and asking somebody for advice that is way smarter than you. I'm not the smart person, so I lean on people that are way smarter than me. Megan is a huge resource. Are you back on, Megan?
I'm back on. Sorry about that.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I don't know if you heard my question. So you gave out some really, really good tips because your one live was about, hey, if you're not getting the funding, if you're not getting, the PPP or any of these grants or whatever, you had made some suggestions as look at your personal finances, and subscription was number one of most people don't even realize they have all these subscriptions. And so you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I would say that I have probably like 3 or 4 main suggestions to not like outside of working on funding that you can focus on for your business. So the main one is subscriptions, because we are such a subscription-based economy that oftentimes we sign up for things, then we don't use them. So if you're looking to cut costs on your expenses, because right now you might not be able to control all the money that's coming in, but you can definitely control your money that's going out, your output. So look at your subscriptions. if you don't have your financials together to be able to pull that information easily, now would be a great time to do that. You can use spreadsheets or QuickBooks or some of the other accounting software out there, just to put your numbers together and identify those subscriptions and determine whether or not they're necessary. Some are, like, you might have some software subscriptions and you can't do your business without those softwares, but there might be other things like you signed up for some kind of a training program that you don't ever go on and use, or you maybe signed up for a different software that's not maybe a necessity, or you can downgrade to like a free version of it. So looking at those things to cut costs can really be helpful. Another thing that I was encouraging people to do is talk to their vendors or landlords and see if you can defer some of those payments or get them for free. I know I had a client who talked to his landlord, and they got three months of rent-free rent, but they are then extending their lease 3 months.
Right.
So that owner is still going to get the money, but it's just on the back end.
Yeah.
Of that, so it's a win-win solution. One other thing that I would highly encourage business owners, especially small business owners, to do is barter. Now is a great time to barter services for something that you need. You can add value to things that you need and be able to add value to somebody else's need as well. So I know when I was first starting out my business, that was something that I did, and it was a great option. And I always encourage business owners to do that, but especially right now, because of where we're at and where different businesses are at, you might not be able to spend the money, but you can maybe barter whatever you offer to some other business owner and be able to get what you need now. So that's another good option to kind of save your cash flow. And then the fourth thing isn't about cutting expenses, it's actually looking at your income. So because that's important as well. And it's good to have multiple streams of income, even within your business. I know that's a popular saying as well, multiple streams of income, but you can actually have multiple streams of income within your business. So like, for instance, we're an accounting firm, but we do bookkeeping and taxes and payroll, and those are different streams of income for us. So look at where your income is coming from and determine if you can add to that or replicate it, or if something is doing really well, one area, that's the area you need to focus on. Again, that kind of goes back to having your books in order. So be able to look at that information. And then the one other thing I would encourage business owners, especially right now, that things are kind of slowed down, is looking at your margins, making sure that you're charging enough for your goods and services, because if your margins aren't big enough, it's not going to cover your overhead, and ultimately that's going to make you less profitable. So looking at your margins is a really important thing to do right now as well.
Yeah, I think those are great suggestions because to me, this was a huge eye opener, because I had to go back and trim a lot of stuff. And I cut out, like you said, a lot of software and services that I wasn't using, or that I said, is this a necessity? Can a human do it where I can save their job as opposed to a program? If it's costing me out the ass, so things like that, that I did. And then the other thing is, and this is so important for people, especially if you have employees, is to look at the numbers and do some projections, because if you're not generating the revenue and you have a team in place, maybe it's better to cut the hours of a team member or somebody, so that that money extends further, as opposed to drying it up, because I mean, you've got to look at the numbers, like slice and dice it. And I think it's painful, but you have to.
Yeah. And one thing, it is painful, but it's kind of like growing pains. And also, like, this is a temporary thing, like, eventually things are going to get to a place. Some decisions you're going to make and some changes you're going to make are going to be permanent, and not necessarily in a bad way, but a lot other things are going to be just temporary, just to get through this. So, like, we're kind of in survival mode, but I know I'm part of this one coaching group, and their model right now is survive and thrive, because there might be some things that you have to do to just survive right now. and other things that you're going to do to change so that later on you're going to be able to thrive, like we had mentioned before, opening up that new set of revenue, stream of revenue, or maybe cutting some costs that you didn't need to have anyways. And to your point about like laying or furloughing employees right now, that might be a really great option because they'll be able to collect unemployment, and unemployment's been raised because of the CARES Act. So they get their money. You might have to buckle down and, get more into the trenches as an owner, maybe like you haven't done it in a while, and do employee things for a while.
Right.
But then you will be able to support yourself based off of that income that you had that you're cutting from eliminating or temporarily eliminating a position.
Okay, so let's talk about that really quick, because I know I've seen that question out is, can a solopreneur or a business owner collect unemployment if they're paying their people and they stop paying themselves? I saw this question out on social media and I haven't seen anybody answer that.
That's a good question. Offhand, I believe you can. So like if you are not going to pay yourself, but you're paying your employees still, I believe you can apply for unemployment. Still, I don't know the ins and outs with that. I did have a client that did it, but her husband works at her business, I guess, and he's the one that, was it him? Either him or her had applied for unemployment, and they had to push back a little bit from unemployment in order to get approved.
Yep.
Because there was some I guess, what do you call it? Friction there, or
Okay.
not friction, but boundaries, or not boundaries. But anyways, you know what I'm saying? There was a deterrent there. There you go. That was a better word. To getting it. So you just kind of have to keep pushing them about like, this is my business. I've been paying unemployment. I think they're on payroll, so they were paying unemployment insurance for themselves. Now, when it comes to people that are not on payroll, where they're not paying unemployment, the CARES Act did open up unemployment to be eligible for independent contractors and solopreneurs. I don't know the paperwork that's behind that though. So that is something that I think unemployment was opening up today to take applications on that. So I'm not 100% sure as to what Wisconsin unemployment is requiring for that. What I had heard just like rumblings about was that they were going to want to see like your 1099 or your last tax return to kind of gauge what you've been making. So similar to the PPP, your business would have to show like a profit, or you would have to have 1099s that were getting issued to you in order to show that income.
Yes. So. And so the other thing I want to mention and just kind of put, the other thing I want to mention and kind of put out there is like, if anybody is getting the money, they really need to get an accountant or somebody to help them, because this stuff is going to you need documentation at the end. Like, this is not just a free for all. I think people are not preparing or planning that there are going to need to document. Like, this is not just free money, Yeah.
Well, I think that's one part that kind of delayed people getting funding too, because all the bigger businesses that had all their accounting together were the ones that were able to apply right away. And so like having your books in order is like super important, because you never know what's going to happen, even just in terms of like crises like now. But to your point, they've appointed a new, what's it called? Like a Secretary General, specific to COVID-19 and the relief funds that are going on there, that are going to be at some point conducting audits. So you are going to want to make sure that if you are getting funding, that you're properly documenting what funds you're getting and where it's going, so that even when you go back to the bank, after June 30th, and you can go back with the proper documentation so that loan gets forgiven. So that, it's very important to have your books in order.
Yeah. Because I just think that some businesses, especially those that are doing their own accounting and stuff, need to prepare that there is going to be a need for documentation, and you don't want to be caught off guard, and you have to be very judicious when you spend this money and cross your T's and dot your I's, because The last thing people want is, for them to be penalized or whatever happens after this happens,
Right. Yeah. And for like the PPP specifically, you can only use that for employee costs, rent, utilities, or interest on other loans. If you use it for anything other than that, they can knock you for actually fraud.
Okay.
So if you use it for something other than those things, they will take a look at it, and if you did not spend it like within reason, they can knock you up for fraud, because that's what those funds were specific for. So I know I had heard some business owners like, oh, I'm just going to apply for it and then I can pay off something else. You can't do that with PPP.
No.
Like, you can get in big trouble. So you want to make sure that if you're applying for it, that you're actually going to use it for its intended purpose.
Right.
And they are also going to be looking at employee counts as well. So I had heard some other business owners as well, like, say, well, can I apply for it, and lay off my employees and then just use that money to pay myself? Well, you can't, because you have to have the same number of employees, or the average number of employees that you had in 2019 or during whatever test period you used. They're going to be looking at that as well.
Right.
So,
but I did hear that you can give your employees a raise during this time because to make up for the hardship or loss or whatever. So I did hear that. I did hear that.
Yeah, and you can reduce wages. Like, if you needed to reduce wages for employees, you can do it up to 25% of less of what they were doing, but you can't do it any more than that. So they are going to be, really looking at these things, especially like the banks you applied for. And each bank is going to kind of have their own processes for like how to apply for the forgiveness program. Just like they had their own process with applying for the PPP. So each bank is going to be responsible for that part, but they're going to be really intentional about it, because the only way they get their funds is by being able to show this information back to the SBA. Right. So it's kind of like they're interconnected.
No, and I get that. And I think that is a good point. So here's the other thing I want to talk about, because I know I applied, my chamber had a fund for small businesses. So I think people need to also reach out to their chambers, to associations that they belong to, anything that supports small businesses, because those organizations are either getting funds from large corporations to help support small businesses that you can apply for. So I know a few of the associations that I belong to or that I'm affiliate with that have done email blasts and say, hey, we only have a couple $100 that we can spread out to as many people that we can. If you apply, we'll divvy it out. They're really trying to give money that they have out. And I know my chamber and the chamber that I had was, it was the Hispanic, African-American, veteran. It was the
the five main ones, right? I think.
So they had funding for businesses, and all you had to do was apply and show that you had a need, and that one was like $500, but they're asking for the same thing. They're asking for balance sheets. They're asking for all the same thing,
Yeah.
So I don't. You've come across that, Megan?
Yeah, I have. There's a few different ones. I know WIBIC is doing a fast track loan program right now as well. So if you needed some loans, you could go to that. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, so that's the Chamber of Commerce for the United States, is also doing like a small business grant program right now, I think up to $5,000. So it seems like more are rolling out different programs to help with the more micro businesses as well, which is really great and encouraging. But it can be a little bit frustrating when you kind of feel like you need the money now. One other option too is Kiva. So Kiva is a 0% loan program that is through, most of the chambers are supporters of that as well, and then also WIBIC in Wisconsin. So that's a great option too. It's like a crowd-funded loan source. And there are tons and tons of people right now that are willing to help businesses thrive. Sorry.
I
work from home.
Right. I think that's like funny, because I have my dogs that bark like, oh my God. And other people have kids or, cats. seen it all now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a few questions that I'm just going to go through some of these. Alan Limer, and Alan, I don't know where you're from, but thank you for the question. Alan asked, how does this work if you were a new startup before the crisis happened? I mean, are the rules?
With any of like the SBA type of relief funds, they are, I'm sorry, like 1 second.
No worries. Again, if you guys, before we wrap this up, if you have any questions, drop a line, please. Would love to hear it. We will give Megan's contact information at the end of this, and she does work with businesses all over the USA, just so you know. Okay, go ahead.
So the SBA, any of the SBA relief funds, you have to be in business prior to February 15th of 2020. So they are looking at like January and February documents mostly in terms of that. So that's kind of like the date you had to have been operating before in order to apply for any of those funds.
Okay, and that's good to know. And then we have, let me see, it was another one. Somebody said that they heard that a lot of large corporations did get this funding and that they have made a promise to give it back because they feel that the small corporations need the money. So that was something to what you were talking about earlier as well. And then what's another one that someone asked? Okay, so I have a lot of, how do I get a hold of Megan?
No, cool.
I don't know if you want to put it in the chat box, but also say it because not everybody's
Sure.
on the, we're on 4 different streams, by the way.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, you can call me at 414-702-5012. I'm trying to figure out how to put it in the chat box.
I'll do it if you, what was it again?
Okay, 414-702-5012.
0. Okay, Bella.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Or
then
you can visit our website is sidekick-accounting.
I actually have it up. I'm going to bring it up for you. Let me see. Hold 1 moment. And then go ahead and sell yourself, girl. This is your time. I mean, is there anything else you want to share?
I saw that Shannon had just posted a question in here.
Okay, go ahead.
She had $1,000 deposit. So the EIDL loan, the grant that they were pushing was changed to only be $1,000 per employee up to 10 employees. It's forgivable if it's rolled into the PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. So it has to roll into that in order for it to be forgiven. Otherwise, it is part of the SBA loan package. There is still some, I guess it's still like out for suggestion. If you don't get approved for it, that amount of money was supposed to be forgivable as well, but I'm not sure if that's going to be the case or if it's going to be forgivable in terms of you don't have to pay it back, but it's going to be taxable when it comes to your taxes. So that I think is still kind of out to be determined. And right now that's kind of the frustration that I can feel personally sometimes, and otherwise is that that things are changing every day when it comes to this.
I would agree.
Yeah, so some of it is like it's constantly changing. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but the SBA is offering tons and tons of webinars. So like if you have questions, that's a great resource to just hop onto one of their webinars because they are giving a lot of information on the relief programs, but also just in general business related stuff as well. So and you can reach out to SBDC and actually talk with one of the agents that's the SBDC is affiliated with the SBA. Also, SCORE is a great resource as well. They've been doing a lot of webinars and informational sessions as well. So there's a lot of good resources out there for small businesses. I would encourage you to definitely follow up. I'm trying to keep up with it, and I've been putting out the information as I get it onto my social media network, so you can feel free to follow me as well in that. Otherwise, in terms of business, we primarily work with small businesses. We do small business bookkeeping, accounting, taxes, payroll, and pretty much all the in-between. So we have three main packages that we work with, but we work with everything from just basic accounting to paying bills and invoicing customers, to looking at your budgets and costing and financial analysis, kind of like the CFO position. So we really kind of do full service for small businesses, and we've been in business for 6 years now, and I love working with small businesses and helping them be successful.
And you
by
help
understanding the numbers.
And you help them also apply for loans if they need it. You help them get the paperwork.
Yes, to get the paperwork together. Yep.
Okay. Just so that people know, because I think after this pandemic, if businesses find themselves in a crunch, I feel like a lot of people are going to be reaching out and getting loans, on a temporary basis to help them if they don't get any of these funds or grants, which, is an option. Like, I don't want people to think like, don't be afraid to try to get a loan to help you through this. If you're not getting the support from the government or whatever, because here's the reality is, just like you and I, this will be my 5th year in business, and this is your 6th year. There's a lot of sweat and tears in this. I'm not going to give it up. I'm going to fight.
Right.
Scratch, claw, beat people up and fight.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I think people need to have that attitude of, what are my resources? What can I do to keep this going? Because you made such a huge investment to get it to where it's at, you know. And I, for one, will tell you, like, I have a new client. Like, the people I'm getting today are completely different than my clients that I got, from before. And I'm okay with that, because like you said, it's another revenue stream when this all ends and we're back to our new norm,
Mm-hmm.
And I think people just need to see this as a positive, and, what's the best that you can make out of it. And, some great suggestions. I'm just going to recap on some of these suggestions, some great suggestions. If you don't have the funds, barter services. If you don't know what barter means, that just means trade services. So I'll do something for Megan, Megan does something for me, and there's no money exchange, but we have some kind of equal dollar value for the services that we trade off. So some people may not know what barter is. Just
that was a great definition, an explanation of it.
Yeah. So if you don't have the resources and you still need to function and you still need some services, vendor wise, because I use a lot of vendors too, is try bartering. And then the other thing is to reach out to your subscription, see if you can get a break, reach out to your, landlords, your car payment. I have a Kia. I love my Kia. So don't knock me. I have a Kia. But Kia reached out to me and said, hey, do you need help? So, I reached out to them and say, hey, can you just knock the 3 payments on the end, so that, and it just extends my car, my lease that I have, as opposed to, and they'll appreciate it because I'm not driving the car.
Right.
And so, things that you can think of, but you got to pick up the phone and you got to talk to people and you got to work these out. It's not going to happen just organically. Don't think that you're going to sit there and this stuff is just going to mend itself. It's not, right? You got to be on the phone.
Yeah, you got to ask for it. Yeah, they're not going to just give it to you, but if you pick up and take the time to have that conversation with almost everyone is going to be, receptive to it, because we're all sitting in the same boat. We're all just trying to get through this, survive and then move on, to what our new normal is. So I think you'd be surprised at the number of people that are going to be willing to help. There are going to be some that aren't, but there's going to be a lot more that are, so. But if you don't ask, it's always going to be a no.
Right. And that's what I'm, and that's the thing to like kind of land on this is if you don't ask or let's say you ask, the worst that can happen is they say no. The worst. Right. The best that happens, everybody says yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you get all these breaks. And so my suggestion is don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated. Reach out and ask. People have empathy. They really do care, and they really want to support small businesses, and they really, and a lot of these companies are gorillas, they're gorillas. So they can, give you a break.
Mhm.
It's not like they're,
Yeah, or they have contingency plans for disaster situations like right now. And so that's one good lesson to take away too from this is like I think there's a lot of silver lining lessons in this. Like one thing is keeping your books together because you never know when that's going to be really pertinent information to have even outside of just regular operations. Another one is making sure that you're planning for the unexpected because the unexpected can happen. I mean,
Yep.
Nobody would have ever thought anything like this would happen. And chances are it probably won't once we're actually through this. It probably won't happen for another 50 to 100 years. But when you're in a small business, something's always going to happen. It's just something you have to prepare for because it's just the way it is. Life, there's always something in life that happens, that disrupts your original plan.
Yeah.
In a small business, things usually take longer than you were expecting. So if you were expecting to make that contract or nail that those sales, oftentimes something that you thought was going to take 3 months actually takes 9 months. So like just in general, as a business owner, you have to be aware of the different things that can happen and be prepared for the unexpected. So this is a good reminder of that that lesson.
Yeah. And, it's a test of time. The strong will survive. And it's about perseverance. And I do love one of the comments you said, adversity brings a lot of opportunity. And it's, it's a mindset is how are you going to go into this and how are you going to finish it strong so that you can overcome, you can overcome. Megan, it was so awesome to have you today. We're going to try and have you again because the information that you shared is so vital. And I know it's a moving target. I know it is. And as we keep moving through and seeing, what's happening around us, I know there's going to be more and more, hopefully more big corporations extending some help and things like that. And I love the information. Thank you so much. And I'll make sure I'll tag you and share all your links on every one of the platforms. Okay.
Thank you.
If you want to get a hold of Megan, she does work with businesses throughout the U.S. She primarily focuses on small businesses. She loves working with them. And she's a doll to have on your side. So definitely have Megan on your side. Thank you so much, Megan. And thank you, everybody, for watching. I appreciate it. And hope you guys stay home, stay safe, and stay positive.
Thanks, Kat.
Bye.
Bye.